Hello and welcome. My name is Ajaxpost, and I have a special, a particularly different video for you today. I'm going to label it a tutorial, but I'm not sure that's exactly the right word, because typically on a tutorial, the person giving the demonstration, the presentation, that'll be me, kind of knows where it's going to end up and what the result is that you want to achieve. I'm not sure in this one, so it's more of a guide. Now, if you've been watching my Let's Play series of Transport Fever, you'll know that I've had a sort of conversation with one of the subscribers about the best way to make profit from inner city bus routes, and whether the way I was doing it traditionally was the best, and it was suggested I was wrong. And an alternative direct route system was proposed. I had a quick go at it in my game, and it never really, I didn't quite make it work. So what I thought I would do to help me decide, and I thought it might help you as well, understand how the routing might work best for you in your game, is to try out all the different options in a kind of guide tutorial type video. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm using a UK modded map, of the UK from the Steam Workshop, from a chap or chapess, I've no idea, who goes by the name of FX2K. I'll put the link to the map into the description. The map should make no difference. It was just a nice sort of different map to use for this exercise. And what I've just set up for this little exercise, to make it as controlled and useful in terms of getting an end result out of it, is I've created a very simple setup. I've got two fairly substantial towns here in the year 1950, so they've had some growth and so on already, and a single train line between them carrying passengers. And we're going to be looking at town London here, which currently hosts 457 people, and that's linked to a town called Birmingham, which has a mere 174. Now, the train stations, do capture a fair amount of the residential area, as they should do, but what it means is that the residents here, can't really travel to London to work because there's no way of getting to the industrial or commercial centres from here. So we need bus routes. So in both places I'm setting up bus lines within the city to assist and to enable that sort of travel to and from work and shops and home. Birmingham, I've just set up a very small little loop here, which I call Birmingham Feeder, which, as you see, connects rather neatly actually this whole industrial commercial area with the train station at this bus station here, which captures a little bit more of the residential area which isn't covered by the train station. Now that is going to stay in place, so that enables people in London to travel to work or to shop in Birmingham, and vice versa. It means people in well, it doesn't mean anything for people in Birmingham, particularly at this point. So we have this rail route along here, and the trick is I can get the residents here from the train station into the shops and offices and the businesses and so on in Birmingham, no problem. But how do I get people from Birmingham to use the shops and the industry in London? So I need a setup of bus routes here. Likewise, there'll be some people here who want to go by bus from my house here to this manufacturing facility down there. It's too far to walk, so I'll provide a bus route. So what I'm going to do here in this video is go through as many of the different alternative ways of setting up bus routes and see, after 5 years, which one comes out with the best profit. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with what I typically do in all my games is, well, I did in Train Fever, and this is how I started in Transport Fever, and I've since changed it, is have two bus routes, one going clockwise around the city, collecting people in all the areas, and another bus route, quite separate, going in the other direction, anti-clockwise, again the same route in a different direction. So basically it means that people from the station here can get down to the businesses down here going that way, or they can go that way depending on which way they want to go. Okay, this I don't think will work terribly well in London because of the way it's set out, but as you can see, it's nicely actually separated London the industrial and the commercial and the residential have nicely sort of discrete spaces. Over the 5 years the towns will grow and develop, and I dare say they will develop slightly differently as each test goes on, but assuming that it's much of a muchness and there are going to be other factors involved in it making a bus route profitable, other than just simply where it goes to and from, this hopefully should give us some clue as to what might be the best possible bus route. So let's set those up to start with. I've already bought 4 buses. I'm going to use the same number of buses and trains and everything throughout all the tests, so it should be a good like-for-like comparison. Certainly at this stage of the game where there's very little traffic. So when the game develops, obviously, and there's more people moving around, the number of buses will become more significant, but for now I think we're okay. So we're running up now to the last 6 months of our test period, and interesting results here actually. Everything is in profit now. The whole system is actually making profit, which is good. But both actually of the London lines are making money. It's not a lot though. It's 9 and 5k so far, which is acceptable. All profit is good, but it's not a vast amount. Though interestingly it compares rather well with the Birmingham line, which was doing very much better business earlier in the game. Again, it may be a capacity thing, I'm not accounting for that, and it's difficult to tell whether the buses here in London are carrying 8 passengers all the way from there to here or back again and missing out passengers on the intermediate stops. I think that they are dropping people off here and there, so it's working reasonably well. And certainly the train is picking up a lot of business. The train is doing very good business, already 650k so far on the balance, and the whole business, as we said before, is showing a nice healthy profit. So it's a good start, but is it the best route for doing this? So we'll run this to the end of the year. I'll stop it. We'll have a more detailed look at the figures here, take a snapshot of them so that we can compare them with the other routing methods, and see what conclusions, if any, we can draw from this. So here we are, December the 30th, 1955, and well, the whole business is in very good shape by the look of it. So these are our final figures then for the 2 lines we're looking at. The anti-clockwise was running 7.37k balance over the 5 years, and the clockwise route slightly less at 5.77, and the town, as you can see, is developing quite nicely there. But how does that actually look if we look at the figures for the town? So we've now got 463, so that's a slight increase. It's been going up, and on the charts, yeah, actually it looks like the population dipped a little bit there for a while before sort of increasing again. Interesting that. I wonder if the other route methods will show anything similar. And if we just look at the lines in detail, the finances of both those, and there we are, there we can see what we're doing. So there we can see, yeah, quite consistently the anti-clockwise is earning that bit more money than the clockwise route. Not a lot, but there is that slight difference. So what we'll do, I will reset my map now to the start point in 1950 and design two different, a single route which now goes in both directions, which is my traditional method now for urban bus routing in Transport Fever. Well, it's currently my method. We'll see how these tests pan out and see if I need to change my strategy. I'll be back with you in the merest blink of a video effect. Okay, so here we are again. Still got the same 4 vehicles lined up in the depot, ready to take on London Town, and the Birmingham feeder and the intercity train line are all in place again. But this time our route, rather than the 2 routes, one clockwise, one anti-clockwise around London, we will do it all as one route which goes in both directions. And here we are, coming into the tail end of 1955, and it's looking actually quite similar to what we saw in the earlier example. In fact, I think this might be making slightly more profit than the old route, though curiously, as you may have noticed, the development of the town is quite different in this example than it was in the previous simulation. Quite why that happens I don't know, and again the randomness of the game and the way the towns develop through no input of my own. There's no cargo going into these cities whatsoever. So how will that impact on the development and on the profitability? Now, the one interesting thing I think you can see, I've not watched it intently, but I think we are seeing more people waiting on this route setup than we did on the previous dual route arrangement. Although we are, I think, most definitely making more money this way than we were on the previous system. But anyway, we'll see the figures when we hit the end of the year and capture those and see how they compare. And here we are, December the 30th, 1955, in scenario simulation number 2. And 19.7k for the combined bi-directional London Circle route. And that is a bit more than we saw in the previous example of 2 separate routes, one in either direction. Again, I think very much the same sort of figure for Birmingham feeder. The train looks like it's a little less profitable this year, but we're not looking at that. It is purely the profit on the bus routes within London town. And as I said, it looks like we're seeing more people waiting at stops than we had before. Anyway, a quick look at how our town has developed. The population has gone down, even though it does look busy. This whole area, I think, was still empty at the end of the last simulation. That is interesting. The population did go down quite dramatically there, but it is again picking up over time. Interesting what the mechanics are for that. Again, I think if you put cargo into a city, you will get better growth generally. So I keep zooming in and out, sorry about that. And a look at the profit on the line itself. With that's quite a healthy gap there between cost and revenue. So that's not too bad at all. So in the next simulation, what we'll look at is another example of 2 routes, but these are going to be specifically targeting the commercial areas on one route and the industrial area on the other route. So I'm just going to reset my map again, and I'll present you with a funky video effect, and I'll see you on the other side of that. And here we are, back at the start of the simulation again, and this will be 2 more direct routes, but I'm going to give you 2 examples of this. One which hopefully also allows for in-town residents to move around, and another one which we'll see after this simulation, which is purely targeting the train station, and see if either of those is any better or worse than our sort of joined up circle routes that we had before. So those 2 routes, we will set one up, and leave this one as yellow, which is targeting, as you recall, we'll target the end, the yellow, the industrial section of the town, which is the bus stop at the end of the town. Again, we'll start at the station. And what I'm going to do in this example is actually include the residential area here, which isn't covered by this, either the train or this bus stop. So there's a lot of residences around this area which aren't covered by these stations here. So I'm going to include that one and then just go straight down to the bottom of town and back again. This is turning into an interesting experiment, isn't it? So, as we can see, the commercial route now is pretty much where it was a couple of years ago. It does dip here and there quite rapidly, actually, between just a few K and double-digit numbers. The industrial one is starting to make up ground. It's losing a lot less money. In fact, one of the buses is actually in profit at the moment, which is quite remarkable. Again, I'm thinking it could be a distance issue here, and there's another thing I've noticed which I'll pinpoint when we get to the end of this particular scenario. The other thing is there are times when there are quite a few people waiting for buses, so I think there is an issue with mixing residential and commercial and too many stops in a route, which could be compromising the efficiency at the points where we really need people to get to, which in this case is the commercial or the industrial zone down the end. I need to keep an eye on the date. I don't want to go over December the 30th. Right, everything's in profit now, but it is nowhere near as much really as we've seen before, or will it? Let's give it a few more moments. Interesting to see how the town development is different again as well. It's curious how it decides to do that, and I'll show you one of the impacts on that, if it's still there, in a moment. There we are, December 30th. So once again, everything is in profit. The commercial route, which is a nice, swift, fairly short route from here through here to here. In fact, I can probably bring that, there you are, to the map. Now the interesting thing here is the route it's taking to get to the bus stop. So it's coming here from the bus stop here by the station, the main one, going down to the residential area here, and it is, rather than, there are bus stops on both sides of the road here, and rather than sort of going round that way, it goes this way round, so it actually makes the route that bit longer, which is, to say the least, curious. Again, in the upcoming patch, depending on when you're watching this, the July 2017 patch update should allow us to put waypoints on roads, so we can actually make sure our traffic, our buses and our trucks actually go down the roads we want them to, which should avoid them rerouting depending on the town development. That's curious. Now what's that done to the industrial route? Now you see, that I noticed that these little buses, they are taking a very circuitous route. So rather than going down here, down the main road, the fast road, around the outside to the stop, and then going down there to the industrial zone, it's going round the blocks here. Round it once and then down again, and that, I think, can't help the profitability of the route really. That must have some sort of impact on the amount of time it takes to get around. In fact, I think on the commercial route here, that started at about 110 seconds. It's now 117. Interesting. Okay, so those are our figures. Not quite as good as the dual circuit route we had before, but if we can make both of them as profitable as this, we will be in the money. So that will be our next test. But finally, just a sort of a final catch of where we are. London. Again, the population is down further again on what it was in our first scenario. That is very curious. I'm not actually noticing the percentages of population transported here. That might have an impact as well in the charts. Again, it's gone down quite dramatically here, and there's a slight increase, but not by much. Again, why? I don't know. That could, of course, impact on the profits on our lines. But there you are. That's what we got. I'll just bring those figures actually back up again. I want those for my final screenshots. So that's the chart, and we want the finances for the two routes. And there we are. Yeah, so the commercial, as you can see, is making a healthy profit from fairly early in the game. It dipped for a while in the middle, whereas the industrial has only just crept into profit. Again, the speed of the buses and so on might have an impact on this. It's difficult to judge, but this is just an interesting comparison on a standard, on a what's the word I'm looking for? On a consistent set of data, on a consistent environment anyway. Okay, so I will just reset the map once more, and we'll go to a slightly different variation on these direct routes. So I will see you on the other side of the funky video effect. Okay, and here we are once again in our London town scenario setting, and we'll have again two direct routes, but this time they will be directly going to the commercial and industrial zones. There'll be no stopping off on these residential areas here. Well, here we are in the summer of 1955 on our fourth scenario, direct train station bus stop to the commercial and industrial zones individually, and they're both actually now making good profit, but I think they are very much dependent on the train and obviously the local residential zone, and they're both actually keeping up with demand just about, I think, at the best of times. So let me just slow that down. Don't want to go over the year. And obviously I've worked out while watching this, you probably realise this already, to be honest, is the reason there's a big dip in the population of London is because when the town builds these roads in areas like this in the centre, it knocks down all the houses that were there to start with, so those people become temporarily homeless. But the game does regenerate houses to replenish the stock, to rehouse all those people. But anyway, it's looking reasonably good actually. I think this is possibly our most successful or profitable scenario. I will do a proper review of all the figures at the end of this scenario, and we'll draw some conclusions from there. But this is actually looking quite good. Just keeping up with that. Again, you may need to actually monitor this quite close. Well, you need to monitor all your routes, to be honest, to make sure you are matching demand with the vehicles that you've got. So this is looking good. 25k already in profit in October 55. The train is doing quite well as well. I was a little worried in 54 it might not make as much profit. It's not really part of the scenario, but the amount of people it can transport back and forth is all part of the equation, because in Transport Fever everything links up. If there's demand, people will use your routes. That's the key to this, and it looks like we've got all 4 buses are now full in London. 16 out of 16 seats are taken, so this is actually looking really good. So it looks like I was advised correctly that point-to-point systems can be more profitable. Again, I dare say it will depend upon the nature of the vehicle, the number of seats, the speed, the distance it needs to cover, and so on. So you always need to watch your routes carefully. But this is looking very good indeed. So we'll just wait for it to hit the end of the month, and then we'll see what the figures say. The numbers, the scores on the doors. So here we are then at the end of this scenario. It's the 30th of December, once again, 1955. Both routes in London, the commercial and industrial direct routes. So neither of these are stopping off at this residential stop there. So if we just bring the routes back up, I have a suspicion that that route might have got a bit longer as the town has developed the roads. That one has pretty much stayed the same. Not much change could happen there, to be honest. So they're probably in total distance, they're not that far apart. 94 seconds as opposed to 126 seconds. So they're reasonably close in terms of the frequency of the available transportation. So let's look at London then itself. 448. That's again, I think it's a decrease on what it started at, but it's better than the last scenario. Yeah, so it's a nice slow increase up. So that's better. Again, over 10 years, these figures may all be different. So I might actually consider doing that, just doing a snapshot of how each of these scenarios work after 10 years in use. See. But again, the trouble with going for that long is the number of vehicles on the road will play more of a part, I think, in managing your capacity on the lines. So let's look at the finances then. So yeah, the commercial was in profit quite early. Again, a dip as the town knocked down the houses. And the industrial route, that took longer because it was a longer route, I think, down there, all the way down there. But again, that is turning a nice healthy profit. They're pretty much of a muchness now at the end of this scenario sequence. But I think we can see just from these figures alone, without actually comparing them, that this direct from the train station residential zone, one route to commercial, one route to industrial, not stopping off picking up any more passengers in town, does give you the best results for that traffic. Again, there is money to be made in town, so you will want internal residential, commercial and industrial routes. Again, whether they're circular or direct, I think the size of your town and the frequency and capacity of your buses will be important there. But anyway, I will just bring up a short show of the different figures and results and the comparisons in detail, so we can see which route did best, which routes did worst. And so here we see the figures, and this is what it looks like for our first scenario, which was two routes, both including all the stops, one going in a clockwise direction as it were, and one anti-clockwise. So one route went from the train station to residential, commercial to industrial, and back to the train station. And the other one in the other direction went from train station to industrial to commercial to residential, back to the train station. And these look like quite nice figures. So my initial sort of routing plan that I've brought in from Train Fever looks reasonably good. Now what I've done here to get a comparison of how profitable the routes are over time, and it's not just a sort of 1 year snapshot, is I've combined the profit over the last 4 years as well as for the last year of the scenario, and I've also included just as a comparison, see what the impact might be on the whole map. So the whole map had 4 routes on it: the train station, the train route rather, between Birmingham and London, and also the small feeder route within Birmingham, which brought the residents into into the train station in Birmingham to get them to London. So that's looking quite nice. I'm quite happy. That's quite a nice, profitable looking setup by the look of it. Now, how does that compare to our second scenario, where we had just the one route, which is kind of the way I've started doing it in Transport Fever, which is to have just one route going in both directions. So it starts off from train station, residential, commercial, industrial, back to the train station, and then goes back in the other direction, kind of like a traditional sort of real world bus route, I imagine. So it went from train station, then industrial, commercial, residential, back to the train station, and then off in the other direction. Now that's interesting. Over the 4 years and the final year figure, those numbers look quite good actually. The 4 year figure is a bit down on the 2 route one, but the interesting thing is that collapse in the total revenue for the map as a whole, for across the whole 4 routes. So it could be that it's just not keeping up, it's not delivering enough passengers to the train stations to support the whole infrastructure that I'm building up there. That's quite interesting, I think, on how that one works. The beauty of doing it that way, of course, is it's a very simple setup, and you don't have so many routes in your towns and on your map, so it's slightly easier to keep control of. Now this is where we start getting into the direct routes. So we have one route which goes from train station, residential, commercial, and then back to the train station, and then the other route was from the train station, residential, industrial, again back to the train station. The interesting thing here is how long it took the industrial route to pick up and start making money. Again, the industrial stop was that bit further away from the train station compared to the commercial stop, so it could well be a distance thing that's sort of giving us these odd figures here, the time it takes to travel that route. But they both eventually turn up into a profit. And the numbers are okay, they're by no means great. They're certainly a lot worse than they were in those two circular routes, which is interesting. So it could be that whole idea of people who want to go to industrial from the train station, for example, sit on the bus all the way there, so nobody in the intermediary residential stop can get on. So you're losing revenue that way. Interesting scenario. Now our final scenario was two direct routes, which was just from the train station to the commercial and one from the train station to industrial. Now these figures, these do look a lot better, don't they? So over the 4 years, both routes made a lot more money. In the final year, both routes made a lot more money than the individual routes, circular routes that we saw before. And certainly when you look at the combined figures, if you add both those routes together, the profit figures are so much better. Look at that, 57.72k, these are in K, dollars, thousands of dollars, as opposed to $35.98 thousand in our first two circular routes scenario. So I think the judgment then comes down to, yes, doing simple direct routes does give you the best profit opportunity. Not just for those routes, but also look at that for the map as well. That is a substantially better figure for the whole transport network that I had in these scenarios. And the worst one, interestingly enough, was the sort of to direct route with the addition of a residential stop on the way to the commercial or industrial zone. Now that was unexpected, to be honest. So there we are, again a sort of proviso. This is an early map when the town's just developing. This situation may change over time as buses get bigger, faster and more expensive, and also as the distances and the quantity of people involved change and hopefully grow over time. But I think certainly for an early game, your first routes in a town setup, this I think is the way to go. Direct routes from the train station down to the industrial or commercial zones independently. And of course, if you've got a large residential area as well further away from the train station, separate routes again from there. So in a town you could have in fact 4 routes, maybe even more, one from each section of the residential area covered by the catchment area. There are other issues you might want to consider, but we might talk about those in another video. But anyway, I hope you found this useful. I certainly had my eyes opened as to how to get the best profit out of my routes in town from train to businesses. I hope this has been useful to you. If you've found this helpful, if you've enjoyed this little video, please leave us a like. If you've any thoughts, suggestions, anything to say about how you get the best money out of your in-town bus routes, or indeed tram routes. I've not looked at trams. Oh dear, it's a whole other video, isn't it? Leave us a comment in the boxes below, and of course if you've not done so already, why not subscribe to the channel, and then you'll know as soon as I upload another one of these Transport Fever or any of my other Let's Play series videos. But from me, Ajaxpost and Transport Fever, bye bye for now.